Hey folks, I recorded a couple of videos lately that have spawned quite a bit of conversation. I thought I'd share with you some of the comments and maybe comment back on a few of them. So the two videos that have sort of generated some discussion in the last week or so. The last one, the one I did maybe a couple back, titled "Get the Most Gear from the." So get the most music from the least gear, which is the tagline of 5 Watt World. It has to do with minimalism, guitar purism, sort of minimalizing your gear and buying higher quality gear and not being a collector or a fetishist. Anyway, the comments I got back, AJR says, if I was a serious musician, I would probably own just 2 or so high-quality instruments, but I'm a hobbyist and enjoy the anticipation of getting a new guitar almost as much as playing the gear. So I thin the hood periodically, which consists of low-end budget guitars. Keeps me happy. I fully agree. I understand that comment completely. Sounds like a good philosophy. You're not, a terrible hoarder or anything. You just like the cycle of getting new instruments, trying them out, keeping some, selling some. I think that speaks for a lot of us, and it's a pretty sensible, balanced response on this issue. Let's see, Rocky Mountain Raz, somewhere close to me, talks about Cordobas, because I was holding one on the video. 5 World has taught me so much, but I do own 19 guitars because of people like you. I'm to blame. Now I do have a variety and enjoy them all, and then he lists off some of his guitars: IYV, Orangewood, Yamaha Ibanez, Cordoba. I've watched so many The Only Guitar You Need videos, and I've even decided, if I've ever decided to keep, I'd keep my Tele Strat SG Mustang. Little Sister copies by King. I own 2 Fireflies, but they're not as nice as my IYV, and so on. So, this sounds like somebody who's willing to consider cutting down, but there's a few that they enjoy. Sounds like he has a good collection. Peter Rebhan, I've not seen you before, welcome. Yes, Keith Williams has positioned himself as the Marie Kondo of the YouTube universe, or is that Marie Kondo? I've watched some of his videos and have nothing against the guy, but his channel doesn't work for me. There are a few issues here. First, there's an inherent contradiction for me in a gear channel that's putatively about owning less gear, and his channel is without question a gear channel. Whether this contradiction is bothersome or whether it rises to the level of mild hypocrisy is up to the viewer. He does an excellent job of creating histories of vintage gear, but to do that while insisting you want nothing to do with the lust for more gear just doesn't work for me, because those videos are part and parcel of creating gear lust in others. Very true. Who's kidding who? Also, I believe I'm correct in saying that he had a stint as a gear junkie and is now, so to speak, a reformed gear junkie. So let's review the bidding. He once had a good time feeding his gear acquisition syndrome, and now would deprive others of the fun that he had. This feels to me like a 30-year-old man who grew up in a family in which he was showered with toys at Christmas as a child by parents, older siblings, aunts, uncles, etc., who now at the age of 30 declares the giving needs to stop because there's no longer any point to it. What about the kids who came after him and deserve their own Christmas memories? But he's certainly a smart and articulate guy, and as an English major, I am too. Me personally, that goes a certain distance with me. He just doesn't close the deal for me, but I probably think too much about YouTube videos and sometimes say too much. That's one of the perils of being 66 and retired, nothing to do all day. If Keith Williams needs or wants to make a living, he's able to do it in whole or in part by carving out a niche in the YouTube guitarverse. More power to him. By the way, I'm not a fan of the real Marie Kondo either. That's a great comment. I really enjoyed that comment, and I agree with the inherent contradiction in the approach. And as I pointed out in my response to this comment by Peter, I think Keith Williams actually admits on a couple of videos that I've watched that he's not quite reached the level of purism that he is aspiring to. I know he owns a Strandberg or two, and he still has a couple of PRS guitars, high end, the American made. At least has that much. So it's not like he's a one guitar guy either. So great comment, I enjoyed that. Robert Z, who comments often, I enjoy your comments, Robert. You only live one. If you have the room and money, no better hobby. Love the new Guitar Day. It's freaking great opening that box. Yes, it is, as long as you don't film it and do a box opening video. Yeah, it is. It's great getting a new guitar and pulling it out and looking it over and sizing it up. I agree. It's fun. Unku Noodles says, I had a boss once that owned 60 guitars of various makes and models. One day he allowed me to rummage through his collection, and I was horrified that they all had protruding fret ends and were the baseball bat variety. When I broached the subject, he honestly didn't know what I was talking about. Of course, I shut my mouth rather than get fired. That's funny. Yeah, there are people like that. There are people that collect for the sake of collecting. They don't play them. They don't learn how to set them up. They don't use them. They tend to just sit around and get more and more decrepit. And if you point out the deficiencies, they don't even know what you're talking about. Those kind of collectors can be a bit annoying. I've run across a few of those in my lifetime as well. I've sold guitars to them. And I almost don't want to. I'd rather sell it to somebody who's going to play it. But, you can't control people. So there you go. Dave Newton, about 10 years ago, I traded a bunch of cheaper guitars for a Sheraton 2. That's an Epiphone. Since then, I've accumulated a number of guitars, again, more than I need or play often. The quality of my Grote and Ivo IV guitars are so good that I doubt I'll part with them. Another good comment, and for the same reason as I replied to Dave there, I have a couple of my Ivo IVs and other budget guitars as well for the same reason. They're just great playing guitars. They play as well as anything. I'm not going to commit the hyperbole of saying they're custom shop quality, but I've set them up and they play great and they fulfill a need, so that's all you need. G Lane says, not that I own many guitars, however, musical instruments are as much art in their design, also their aesthetics. A good chef or artist has many tools at their disposal to create their meals, masterpieces. It can be boring to follow what dogma another channel is putting out. I feel the concept of limiting to a single guitar is not a new idea, but ideas for songs sometimes slip out of many different guitars, so that would be difficult to slim down your herd if you use various guitars to be like an antenna that brings you song idea. Okay, I see what he's saying. His argument is that sometimes you have an array of guitars for songwriter. They give you different sounds, different textures. They play differently, and there's no fault in having such an arsenal at your disposal. And I tell him, I think your philosophy is sound. A few people talked about people collect all kinds of stuff. Hey, if people can collect stamps, baseball cards, records, hobbies, and collect dead insects, collecting musical instruments shouldn't be frowned on. That's James Gratz. Very true. There's a lot worse things in life. Who is goofier, says also James, a guy who collects guitars or a guy who collects crummy stamps or coins. I'm not gonna bash on people who collect stamps and coins. They can be quite cool as well. But you're right. Collectors are collectors, and there's no difference really, except the guitars take more space. The problem is that the guitar species has diverged all over the place. This is Rob Roberts. There used to be just one main guitar, a gut-stringed acoustic Baroque style. That's an easy time to be a minimalist. Now there are nylon, steel string, acoustics of many different shapes and sizing, including cutaways, electronics, vastly different pickups, variously different amp settings, so it's a little harder now to make a choice. Exactly right, there are so many subspecies of guitars. When I look at my guitars over in the corner, I got my dreadnoughts, my smaller body, my parlors, my baritone guitar, which is tuned differently, my 12-string. That's just in the acoustic realm. So there's at least 4 different types that do different things. James Gratz's comment made me laugh. Panties, he says. Translation for you Brits, knickers. Some folks collect panties. Guitars last longer. I mean, unless you take really good care of your panties. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but James isn't really joking. A few years ago when I was on eBay, and I've been on eBay since its inception, I noticed a seller selling used panties, underwear, kind of a fetishist type thing, and people were buying them. And their ads were talking about how many days they've worn them, how stinky they are, and I realized there's a whole fetish world out there for buying used underwear. I don't know, I can't remember if it was a male or a female selling them, or what the target audience was. I didn't pay too much attention to it. I didn't want to be seen reading the ad. However, I did note that there are all kinds of crazy collectives in the world, so guitars probably aren't the worst thing that you can collect. So I really enjoyed those comments. Also, the last video I posted, I'm selling all my Harley Benton guitars, which is kind of a talk about budget guitars and how people buy them, like them, and end up trading up or selling off or selling up. Let's read some of these responses. Over the Hill Cheap Guitar Noodle, a great name, and I know you comment often, and I appreciate your comments. I tend to look on Reverb and eBay a lot to see the prices of used Harley Bentons. Most of the prices are at least $100 more than what the seller paid for them, which may not be a bad deal because shipping cost of Harley Bentons has gone up quite a lot. If the seller bought a lot of Harley Bentons prior to the higher shipping costs and got 3 at a time, and selling them is a good profit for them, that's okay, I guess. Thanks for your insight, etc. Yeah, I mean, some people do mod them a bit, improve them, work on them, and then try to sell them at a little bit of a profit. Whether they get those prices, I don't know. You often see stuff listed on eBay. It doesn't mean that they're actually getting those prices. They might have to settle for a lower offer. I think it's tough to buy new brand guitars like IOAV and Harley Benton and sell them at a profit unless you're doing something considerably upgrading. And even then, I think it's tough. Let's see, other great comments. Old Boy in Georgia Guitars also comments quite a lot, has his own channel. Really enjoy your feedback. I agree with you totally. Apparently some of the comments don't. We'll get to those. I have great cheaper guitars all the time, but you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. If you change every part of a Squire, for example, to the best parts available, it's still not going to be custom shop. With acoustics, you basically have what you have. Nothing wrong with budget priced instruments, but there's a reason that certain guitars are $3,000. If they weren't better, the companies wouldn't build them. I don't know what's so hard to understand about this. Yeah, and it was the hyperbole that I was going against in that video. People who making these outrageous claims. I don't think it helps the budget guitar community to do that. My contention in the video is that you can mod a guitar to punch up a few $100s, but not a few thousand. Doug H in VA, I assume you're in Virginia. Because a person buys several guitars of a brand and sells them does not change the guitars at all. The person has changed their mind for some reason. Markets are made up of buy-sell activity with profit made and loss. I have bought inexpensive guitars that are not popular but fairly well made, and some of them are from the USA, and I've sold them at a profit. People buy and sell for different reasons. Sometimes learning about a brand leads to one not wanting to buy one anymore for whatever reason. That's just the market. Yeah, very sensible comment there, Doug. There are all kinds of reasons why somebody would buy a bunch of budget guitars and then eventually decide to sell them off. This comment sort of took issue with this video. I think they got the wrong end of the stick. I'll just read the comment, which is very well put, from Axis 2084. Living in the future, are you? Here's his comment. I've made whatever guitars I bought work for the studio and live performances. I've done that for decades. The problem, I believe, is the lack of imagination, motivation, and or skill of these guitarists who buy budget guitars and soon sell them. They're either too lazy, too inept, or actually upgrade and modify them. So they buy their budget guitar, give it a basic setup, play it for a bit, get tired of it, Give in to the marketing brainwashing from more expensive brands. The whole tone wood thing that PRS was pushing for years is a prime example of that. He goes on to say, names on headstocks, prices, marketing claims mean zero when it comes to quality. You can buy a great guitar for under $200. You can buy a poorly made one for that. The same goes with expensive ones. You can get a great guitar for over $1,000 and you can get a poorly made one for that. I can't tell you how many luthiers, repairers I've known over the decades who would often see high-priced Gibson, Fender, Ibanez guitars show up in their shops with sharp fret ends, uneven frets, bad electronics, misaligned bridges, bad nuts, the lot. So what you pay doesn't mean anything in my experience. A great guitar can be had at any price, just as poorly made ones can be found at any price. His last point, this is a disappointing video to watch. He's referencing the video that I made. I've taken guitars that I paid $50 for on the used market and fixed them up to match or rival $1,000 guitars. It's not a matter of wishing it to be so, which is the claim that I made. I've proved myself over and over. What you are stating is an opinion, so am I. You'll probably make a lot of slimy guitar snobs and cork sniffers happy with this video. The more fodder they can amass to boost their fragile egos, the happier they are. Plus, if they spent a ton on average quality guitar, it gives them a peace of mind to see people foolishly equating price with quality as an absolute. It's sad you're saying these things. You and I both know that price doesn't equal quality. I actually spent a long time replying to this because it's a thoughtful comment written here. But I actually think that the commenter kind of misinterpreted my meaning. That's how I started my reply. I think you're misinterpreting my meaning somewhat. First, every single video I make encourages people to learn setup and not judge guitars until they're properly set up or even improved with mods. It's almost a tagline of mine. I say it all the time. Learn some setup. Set up your guitars. Secondly, I don't know too many YouTubers who have explored the sheer range of budget guitars that I have. This is my claim. Sure, there are some well-known YouTubers, and we all know the names, of those that have done it with electric guitars. Tons of channels of people doing Harley Bentons and IYV and Grote and all that stuff. There's probably 20, 25 channels out there, big channels out there. But non-acoustic, classical, and ukuleles as well. I'm doing the lot here. My scope is a lot wider than a lot of channels. Thirdly, I say, no one has worked harder to debunk the cork sniffer mentality or dismantle the ludicrous brand snobbery in the industry. And you could count the videos. I've made dozens that deal with this issue. What I said in my video, what I'm saying is that hyperbole does not help our cause either. I'm talking to the commenter whose name is Axis 2084. You may have turned a $50 guitar into a $1,000 guitar with great mods. I'm not saying you haven't. I haven't. That hasn't worked out for me. I've worked on thousands of guitars and can often turn them into something that rivals a brand or a model $200 or $300 more. This is an amazing feat and shouldn't be underestimated. If you take a $100 budget guitar, $150 budget guitar, and you make it play like a $300, $400, $500 guitar, that's brilliant, I think. Shouldn't be underestimated. What I can't say is that I've turned a Glary or the like into a custom shop guitar. In other words, I haven't bought a $100 guitar and turned it into a $2,000 guitar. And while there may be a few people that are capable or industrious to get close to this claim, for most people that say it, I think it's disingenuous hyperbole, and I stand by my comment. All of the reviewers who take an IYV guitar and say it plays as good as my American-made vintage Fender, I'd say most of the time that is hyperbole. I don't think it's true. It may play as well as a really high-end Ibanez, or not Ibanez, a really high-end, it may play as well as their Chapman or something like that. But yeah, saying it rivals a custom shop or a vintage guitar in the thousands, I think, is going to be most of the time hyperbole. I stand by that comment. You've seen the videos where someone does one or two small mods to a guitar and then makes this outrageous claim. This feeds the cork sniffers more than anything. So in other words, me and this commenter, we actually agree with each other. It's just that I think he's got the wrong argument. Or he's misinterpreted the argument I was making. I am a champion of budget guitars, but I don't think we help our cause when we say, hey, buy this Glary, it's as good as any Fender I've ever owned. I don't think that helps our cause. I think that helps the snobs more than anything. I think if you make a much more accurate parallel, if you say, I made this Glary as good as like a high-end Squire, I think that's a lot more believable and provable. Last comment I made to him, also there are lots of people that tire of their budget guitar collection, whether we like it or not. That's what my video was about. It was about this trend where people buy lots of these guitars and they sell them off. I mean, it's their decision. They do it whether we like it or not, whether we think they're lazy and worthless or not. Maybe they did sell it off because they can't do the setup. That doesn't mean that they're not doing it. It's going to happen. My video telling them to enjoy the guitars for what they are and not trash the brand or model after selling it off or moving up or selling on or whatever is not a negative thing. It doesn't work against the budget guitar community. That's the point I'm trying to make in response, in rebuttal to this comment. They clearly don't have your skill or aptitude to improve the guitar, and everybody's free to do what they want. So encouraging them not to pronounce that guitar is a load of crap after selling it off is not a bad thing, nor does it work against our shared ethos. And I do agree with the comment that Axis sent me, all of it. His contention about people often selling stuff off because they can't work on them, they're too lazy to work on them. Headstocks, prices, marketing scams, branding often being bullshit, and people sort of falling for the marketing schemes. I agree with all that. I agree that a lot of budget guitars can be made into good guitars. I agree with everything he says, except for the fact that I'm speaking out against the budget guitar community, because I'm not. All I'm saying is don't over-exaggerate the claim. All right? If you buy a Glary and you make it into a great guitar, don't tell everybody that it's as good as any vintage Fender that you've ever owned. I think that's disingenuous. I also think it's hyperbole, and I don't think it helps. That's all I was saying in that video. So we agree, that last one, we agree on a lot of stuff, and I think it's a great comment he made. I just think, his disappointment at my video, I think was perhaps because he took it a little bit out of context, but I still think it was a great comment, and I enjoyed responding to it. So there we go. It was interesting to have that flurry of activity. I'm thinking, if this continues somewhere down the line, we'll turn this into a live stream so that we can do this in real time, because I'd love to have these conversations with these folks, all of you, in a live stream setting where I can read your comments and talk in real time. I'm just waiting for the channel to build up to where none of us are wasting our time. I don't want to do a live stream and have 2 people show up. I'm waiting till I'm worthy of it, so to speak. So hopefully that'll be sometime soon. All right, folks, this has gone on over 20 minutes, so I'll end it here. But I look forward to reading more of your comments and talking more about these issues. See you then.